on one side of the country, you've got a team that's, quiet. They're not really making headlines. They're just working. You know what I'm saying? You can see the Lakers. They're 0-4 in preseason, but you can see them actually building. And on another team, on the other side, you've got distractions. You've got players that are in and out of the rotation. You've got a guy in Kyrie Irving who's not going to be allowed to play any games, let alone not road, not away, anything until he gets vaccinated, and there's no indication that he's going to get vaccinated. I agree.
All right, so this topic gets juicy because there's a lot of conversation that's going to go around this one, especially with the recent news of Kristian, a team that you know very well, the Brooklyn Nets, but award number 4, certified champs, because there can only be one winner. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't be a proper preseason award show without the finals prediction. Kristian, who do you see taking the crown this season?
I mean, at this point, it's hard for me to choose anyone not named the Los Angeles Lakers.
I would hope so.
On one side of the country, you've got a team that's, quiet. They're not really making headlines. They're just working. You know what I'm saying? You can see the Lakers. They're 0-4 in preseason, but you can see them actually building. And on another team, on the other side, you've got distractions. You've got players that are in and out of the rotation. You've got a guy in Kyrie Irving who's not going to be allowed to play any games, let alone not road, not away, anything until he gets vaccinated, and there's no indication that he's going to get vaccinated. And then you've got a team that also still has holes in their roster to fill. You know what I'm saying? Well, what happens now if, now who do you move into Kyrie's spot? Do they have to play big now so you can move Joe Harris down to the 2 and KD down to the 3? It's tough. So for me, obviously, I would go with the Lakers, but then out in the East, you got to look at the Bucks and you got to look at the 76ers as teams that are now kind of one up over the Nets, because when you just look at the top heaviness on that roster, yes, you have KD and you have James Harden, but there's such a drop-off after those two players in terms of talent that these other teams, the Bucks and the Sixers, they start to bridge that gap. So I'm looking at the Lakers for sure.
That's a good point, and that's one thing, that's a criticism I've always had of Brooklyn, is that they're probably the most talented team when they have their entire roster, right? But they're not the most complete team in the sense that there is a drastic difference in the front runners of that team and everybody else. And I think if you look at some of the other teams in the East, the talent is more evenly dispersed, right? So if you were to lose, say, Giannis for a couple of games, those games are still winnable in a series because you have, so many other guys who can carry that load. But if you lose Kyrie Irving, you lose James Harden, it's Kevin Durant out there fending for himself, and he's got to play 45 minutes a game and drop, 40 points and just these crazy numbers. And I agree with you. I think that when you take Kyrie out of the equation, obviously they're still an immensely talented team, but they're not as talented. And I think that there are other teams that are able to combat that absence better than the Brooklyn Nets. So you are saying right now that if Kyrie cannot play, they're not coming out of the East. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and it pains me to say that, but you got to think about taking a guy like Kyrie out of the rotation adds so much more onto the plate of a guy like James Harden, onto a plate of a guy like Kevin Durant. And these are guys that you want for the long haul, right? So after a season of trying to, get this team to finish 3rd in the East or 4th in the East, depending on where they finish, now after carrying all that mileage, you got to play 48 minutes a game in the playoffs just to stay alive. It's tough. So I think the Nets are going to be now a team that's going to be active in the trade market and in the buyout market because they have to be. But it's just going to be tough. You have too much inconsistency to start this season. It's not ideal.
So give me your Eastern Conference pick, your Western Conference pick, and in that series, who wins and in how many games?
At this point, I think I'm going Lakers-Bucks. I think, and in that matchup, it's hard to bet against LeBron. So I go Lakers-Bucks and probably Lakers in 6.
All right. Lethal, who you rocking with?
Yeah, I was asked this question yesterday, but I said the Lakers and the Nets. Not hearing the news about Kyrie today, so I kind of want to switch it up. So if people watch the other show I was on yesterday, don't come against me. But I can't say the Nets anymore. I think I want to go with the Heat only because picking up Kyle Lowry was major for them. Like he's a dog, just like Jimmy Butler, and it's going to be kind of tough to get through everything they have now because they're going to give Tyler Hero that battery pack. They're going to give Robinson that battery pack, and they're just loaded to me. With Kyrie, I have the Nets, but without Kyrie, all due respect to those guys, I have Miami Heat coming out, and I have the Lakers coming out. I have the Lakers win it all. Just like you guys saying, it's a little bit of downfall. They have great role players, the Lakers do, but I feel like, there's a downfall that if an injury happens or if we have to rely on the bench. It's just preseason, but it's not selling to me that it might be a championship team. But I still think they'll win it, but I don't think it's going to be easy. So I think it's going to go to the last game if the Lakers and the Heat go at it.
That's honestly my exact prediction.
Yeah.
I have Lakers and the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
I still think that the Nets, with or without Kyrie, can make it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay.
I think, though, when it comes to that level of competition, the more complete team will win. I don't necessarily think it's always about the better team because basketball is a team sport, and Kevin Durant and James Harden can only do so much on their own. The Heat are well coached. They are deep. And I think we're going to see a different type of Miami Heat team than we saw last season. Obviously, with the addition of Kyle Lowry, it's going to be a huge difference maker. It gives them a lot more scoring power. The spacing on the floor is going to look a lot different. Defense has never been so much of an issue in Miami. It's really been the opposite side of that. I think that this team is going to look drastically different. I do have the series going 7 if they face the Lakers. Anything can happen in Game 7. Obviously, my gut tells me to go with a LeBron James-led team, especially if they're fully healthy. But it's going to be a dogfight for sure. I think that's going to be the rematch of that Bubbles matchup where Jimmy Butler was injured. Where Bam Adebayo was injured, and Dragic, who's no longer on the team, he was injured, and the Lakers faced a Miami Heat team not at their best. And I think this is we're going to get the rematch that we deserve, and they're going to see a completely different Heat team. It's gonna suck definitely for Nets fans. It's gonna suck for Kevin Durant. This is not what he signed up for. But you kind of take the cards and you deal with the hand that you're dealt. And unfortunately, unless he can talk some sense into his boy Kyrie, and hopefully he can. I mean, look, they have a friendship outside of the game of basketball. If anybody can kind of turn his mindset and help him to see the bigger picture, which is the team and winning a championship, it's Kevin Durant. But as of right now, if he's not going to show up, the team is going to drastically suffer when it counts.